Sorry, we heard that everyone's ears were malfunctioning and nobody was able to hear us. No, we were having some issues on our end with audio, so we apologize for that. We're going to kind of start from the top and then jump right into questions. So I'm Anthony Navarro. I'm the product lead for Intro to Self-Driving Cars program.
Yeah, and I'm Cezanne Camacho. I'm a content developer on Intro to Self-Driving Cars Nanodegree program. I was also a content developer on Self-Driving Car Nanodegree program. And so I have some insight as to how this intro differs and how it can help you in the long term. Yeah.
So the first question is, what are people going to learn in this nanodegree? Cezanne, can you kind of fill them in a little bit on that?
Yeah, so there's a lot of specifics, but we sort of developed this curriculum with two sorts of student groups in mind. The first is someone who struggles with some kind of like math that's really heavily used in self-driving cars. These are things like algebra, calculus, some matrix algebra that turns up really a lot in self-driving cars. The second type of student we're catering to is someone who struggles with kind of like challenging programming concepts. So we're really diving into the fundamentals, good programming practices, some fun exercises there, and you'll see how both programming and math can really help you to learn about self-driving cars, the advanced material.
Yeah, so we're going to address some of the questions that were asked in the Google form. If we have some time, go ahead and feel free to ask some questions in YouTube, and we'll try to address those as well. One of the questions a student had was, what kind of services are offered? Obviously, Udacity, one of the things that separates us from our competitors is that we really kind of walk you through your journey of education. And so we offer live help, which is a way for students to actually ask a question to mentors and reviewers who are waiting, and you can get like live feedback on that. And then we also have a forum and Slack community that people will be able to access.
Yeah, and just to add to that, I'd say live help is really interesting because it's like at the moment that you get stuck, you can hopefully get unstuck by someone who's helping you immediately. I'd also stress the importance of project reviews, which are in a lot of our programs, and it's a real person, a real expert, reviewing your code, your project code, and giving you feedback, helpful feedback on like line by line kind of a thing.
We have a question about financial assistance, if any financial assistance is offered on this program. So if you haven't heard, we partnered with Lyft to sponsor about 400 scholarships. Now those aren't all right up front, but we do have an application page that you can go to and apply for a Lyft scholarship. There are a lot of applications and very few scholarships, so just be aware of that. What was the next one?
We actually have some Lyft employees in this.
We do, yeah. So actually, Lyft was super excited about the chance for this to join in this program, and a lot of Lyft employees actually joined in. So that is very exciting. Can I choose any course on Udacity and pay a certain amount instead of $200 a month? So certain programs that we have different pricing structures depending on the program. Some of our programs are the $200 a month. Intro to Self-Driving Cars is not. It's a straight $800 program. That's offered right up front, and that's all you pay. It's 4 months long.
Yeah.
So, how rigorous is the math going to be in this, Cezanne?
So it starts off fairly low. We do assume that you have seen some basic algebra, x plus 2 equals y kind of a thing. And then we sort of talk about car motion, the calculus behind that, and then we go into matrix algebra and operations because we found that's where students struggled a lot in self-driving car nanodegree, and it gets pretty rigorous. I'd say there's some math examples that are just pen and paper, and then we also have a lot of programming exercises where you have to demonstrate what you've learned.
So we've got people asking about their programming experience. One individual looks like they have some Java experience, and another one has no real programming experience. Is this program right for them?
I would say, so I come from a Java background, and I think you would actually be very well equipped to see something like Python, like C++, which we use in this program. I think you'll pick it up really quickly. For someone who's had zero programming experience, I would encourage you to maybe look up a little bit of Python syntax before starting the program. But I actually think the ramp up goes from 0 to none. There's a lot of exercises, some demonstrations and playgrounds where you are left to sort of play around with simple code up to complex code, and we build it up step by step. Things like variables, things like functions, things like objects and classes are all covered sequentially. So I think it could be good, but just be cautious about that.
The program is marketed as an intermediate program. We do kind of expect that you have some level of expertise in programming. Without that, it's not saying that you're not going to be able to do it, but you are going to struggle a little bit more. So I would recommend that you get at least familiar with programming concepts, because we aren't teaching the basic programming concepts of like for loops and variables and things like that. But if you are familiar with programming in any language, Python's extremely easy to pick up, and then we're actually going to help you learn C++ by going from Python to C++.
That's right, and I think we had actually a number on that. That was something like if you've had like 50 hours of programming experience, just sort of sitting, writing some code, looking at code, even looking at documentation online, I think you will be well equipped to deal with this program. Yeah.
We have another question about the frequency of the classes we're going to offer, and specifically, are we going to be offering a class during the summer of 2018? So our sessions open currently about monthly, a little bit more frequently than that. We do adjust that a little bit sometimes, but it is an ongoing enrollment. So you will be able to, by the summer of 2018, if that's when you're planning to have time available, a class should be able to be offered then. Here's a good question about the hardware that you're going to need to do the class. So you have a MacBook Pro with an NVIDIA graphics card in it. Is that going to be okay for the machine learning piece, or should you buy a new GPU? You're not going to need to buy a new GPU for this. If you have a computer that has GPU capability, that's going to be great. When I went through the full self-driving car program, I was using a Lenovo laptop with, it might have been actually that same graphics card in it, and it was able to do everything I needed for it. So having a GPU when you get to the machine learning portion is advantageous. But that is also a little bit later on in the course.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I think so the sort of machine learning portion of this class is currently in development, and since it is sort of like a ramp up to the more advanced content that's in Self-Driving Car Nanodegree, which sometimes does require like a AWS instance, we're hoping to make a project that you can just run on your CPU. So basic computer, basic laptop should be able to handle all of the projects that you will be tasked with in this program.
If I was to enroll and pass successfully, will there be an employment opportunity to follow automatically, as I assume there are little openings in Ireland for this type of skill? I'm not actually sure if what the market is in Ireland. I mean, hopefully there is a worldwide market for self-driving cars. From what we've seen, there is definitely many countries that students are in that are looking at applying these skills. And these skills also go across the board with robotics in general. So the skills you learn here aren't just going to be useful on self-driving cars. Any kind of robotics or autonomous system that you would want to apply for it in the future, you will be able to apply these skills towards. And that's also why when you graduate, we're not just giving you acceptance into the self-driving car program. You can also take the robotics or flying car nanodegree programs if you're interested in that as well. Mm-hmm. This is a foundational course, though. This isn't something meant to get you job ready. And while it would be great, if you could go above and beyond and you can find a company that wants to help you grow in your career in like an internship way, that's not technically the goal of this program. The goal of this program is to get you ready to take one of the other courses that will get you more in depth with self-driving cars, flying cars, or robotics.
Yeah, that's right. You can kind of think of it as like a stack where this is sort of a foundation for any robotics control systems course, and then something like self-driving car, robo, that's something that would be a job-ready nanodegree. I'd also mention that since self-driving cars is such a new technological field, there are a lot of companies really looking to hire fresh talent at even like a junior level. So if you really focus on projects and doing those really well, really rigorously, and understanding all the programming and math behind that, that's something that employers will notice and that you'll be able to talk about too in any interviews.
Another interesting question is, do self-driving car engineers work crazy hours? This space seems like it's moving really fast, and it's going to require a lot of overtime on the engineers. I would say in any kind of startup space, you're going to be working longer hours. Most of those people that are in kind of those fields are doing it out of the passion, I think, not necessarily because they have to do it. But that is something I think when you get into a really fast-moving field that you just have to be aware of, that it moves fast and there may be longer hours, days where you have to kind of put in the long days.
I think that's fair. I think there's also, just as far as like company culture goes, it's to have like healthy, happy employees. You don't want them working super long, so it's actually in companies' interest to not have really long hours. But it is something that varies. Yeah, that's all I can say about that.
When I graduate from this course, is there any opportunities in the Bay Area? Well, this is like where a ton of opportunities are. There's obviously more opportunities here than there are in any other area that I know of. Pittsburgh is starting to catch up a little bit, I think. But it's still, the Bay Area is like the breeding ground for this type of technology. So if you're either in the Bay Area or looking to move to the Bay Area and you really want a career in this is a great place to be.
Yeah, I'd also look into like really specific job postings if you're interested in something that is like artificial intelligence for self-driving cars, if you're interested in hardware, if you're interested in computer vision, how cars see the world, there are specific jobs for each of these sort of specializations, because not one person is expected to be able to do everything. So that's one thing to look out for.
Yeah, so I have a student asking about the refund policy. If they get into the classroom and they're not really happy about what they see, or they realize that they're ready for the self-driving car program instead, or they would rather take that one, what is our refund policy?
Yeah, I think that's understandable, because like, what if you find out that you already know this sort of material? And there's, I believe, a 7-day refund policy, so you can be in the classroom 7 days, exploring content, going through quizzes, going through projects even, and then if you find that it's not for you, you can ping our student support email, which I am not sure about on the top of my head, and you'll be refunded, and you can transfer to another program if you like, I think.
Yep, that's true. And I think the email is introstc-support.com.
Yeah, maybe we can put it on the YouTube.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and if you go through your orientation, there should be links in there for all that. The Slack channel is another great way to reach out to us.
Yeah.
We have had people that are in the self-driving car program after we announced this that are very interested in, they think they're in a little over their head and they want to go back. And so we are helping those students transition over to the Intro to Self-Driving Car program. And the same way, if you think you're ready for the self-driving car program, there is an application process there, so I guess my advice would be apply and get accepted first. But if you don't think, and also ping our student services. If you think that it's, you're too advanced for this course and it's not hitting what you wanted to learn, definitely contact us and we can work on doing something. But the standard, refund policy is 7 days after the classroom opens.
Yeah.
So, which is next week. Hope everybody's excited.
That's true. And if a student completes this nanodegree program, they have like guaranteed enrollment to self-driving car. That's
correct.
Right. So I would say even if you
guaranteed acceptance, I guess.
Guaranteed acceptance. So I would say even if you think you are like, maybe if you already know this material, it doesn't necessarily hurt to go through it again, maybe approach it from a different way and really drill down these fundamental skills before you move on to something more advanced.
What subjects do you need to be successful? You're interested in learning racing cars and translating the performance aspect of self-driving cars. Will that be beneficial? Alignments, braking points, handling characteristics, understeer, oversteer. Those are all really good and interesting topics, but those are more on the mechanical side of it. A lot of what in modeling side, when you're doing simulation, you're going to model a lot of that to physics accurate levels. A lot of what we're teaching is the autonomy stack. Yeah. So how does the car operate? How does it think for itself? How does it make decisions when you have the road in front of you? And there's many different techniques that we teach based on that. And again, this is just starting your journey into this. So learning the basics that go into that whole stack.
Yeah, I'd say I don't think it's like spoilers to say that like one of the very first things that you'll be taught is how to localize a car, which is to say, how can we really know where a self-driving car is at any given point in time? This is relevant for self-driving cars that are safe on the road, navigating city streets. This is also relevant, as you might imagine, on anything like a race car driveway. We don't address like performance driving specifically, but the same safety rules, the same control principles do apply there. And the first step is the car needs to know where it is, and the second step is maybe where it's going.
Sure.
Yeah.
So this is kind of a long question, but I think it's a really good one. If somebody's really determined to switch careers, quit their job, commit to utilizing Udacity programs to learn the skills they need to be a self-driving car engineer, should they start here? Should they start at data foundations, intro to programming? How should that path go? I think that's a really, really good question, because if you're interested in self-driving cars and you're willing to pay to take a course on it, there's a good chance that you want to work in the field, or at least something around the field. Where you start kind of depends on your background. If you're right out of high school, you don't have advanced math skills, if you don't have programming knowledge, or even later in your career and you're rusty on all those kind of things, intro is a great place to start. If you have no programming experience at all, and I say intro in two different ways. We do have two intro programs, intro to programming and intro to self-driving cars. So intro to self-driving cars is good if you kind of need a refresher, but you've had those skills, you've had that experience in the past. If you've never programmed before, and the concept of a for loop and how you would even create that is completely foreign to you, please take like Intro to Programming, Data Analysis, kind of what interests you. I think Intro to Programming is a good one to just start learning how to program, how to use Python. What are the basic computer science concepts to use? And then Intro to Self-Driving Cars will be, there. If your goal is to get a job, become a full-time employee in this field, I encourage you to do more than just take a class. I'm very adamant with students when, Udacity programs are great and you're going to learn a whole lot of skills. However, so will the other thousands of students that are learning with you. So just like a college degree, what sets you apart from the masses? And what's going to get you the job when hundreds of students are maybe applying for this, the 5 internships that, Waymo is going to offer. Going above and beyond, networking, doing your projects, but then also modifying your projects, doing a side project. Those are all things that I think are extremely important and give you something to tell employers outside of just when they ask you a question of, how do you solve this problem in C++? Well, great, you can do that. But then in addition, you have this crazy, RC self-driving car that you've been working on, or you've gone to these meetups and you know somebody who's a hiring manager, and because of that relationship you've established, they're willing to bring you in as an intern. So do you have other advice for people that are really serious about looking into jobs and how they start from like day one as a Udacity student and which program maybe they
Yeah, I think kind of what you said is right. It's like kind of a cop-out, but it definitely depends on sort of your level of expertise. But it is something where Intro to Self-Driving Cars and Self-Driving Car Nanodegree program, we both have partners in industry. We've asked them kind of like what skills we're looking for, what skills people are lacking maybe even in interviews. And we compiled, especially in the intro program, fundamental math, fundamental programming concepts that you probably could get in our other courses, but it's like in one sort of like smooth nanodegree program here. And I'd say start with the intro and then go to Self-Driving Car Nanodegree program where you actually get those projects that we have employers looking at.
And I think we've touched on this a few times, but we'll call it explicitly. Which major programming languages are used in this nanodegree, and do I have to have vast knowledge of mathematics, specifically in calculus or matrices?
Yeah, so we touched on it a little bit, but we'll be going over calculus and matrices, assuming just basic algebra, the stuff you might see in a textbook of just like, if you are comfortable seeing x plus y equals something, that should be okay. And our programming language that we use is Python, a lot of Python, and we also use C++ because it's very fast and used in actual self-driving cars to operate hardware.
Yeah, and I think that's also one of the lines that people may be asking whether they should be an intro to self-driving car or self-driving car. The way that I like to look at it is your problem-solving ability with programming. If you're able to be given an abstract concept or kind of a word problem and you can go and execute that in code, then, programming-wise, you're probably ready for the self-driving car program. If you struggle a little bit, if you're good at modifying code, maybe not writing brand new code or taking a blank slate and incorporating, hundreds of lines of code to solve a problem, then Intro to Self-Driving Car is a good place to start because we're going to kind of get you used to more of that. You're going to modify code, then you're going to start writing your own code, then you're going to translate code. So learning multiple languages too. And the same as with mathematics. If you understand calculus and you understand matrices and you understand the notation, which is, I think, the most important thing that you need to be able to understand going into the Self-Driving Car Nanodegree, you are probably prepared for that one. If you don't know what a matrix is, if linear algebra and algebra are similar in your mind, or you are not familiar with what an integral or derivative or the meaning of those are, then Intro will be teaching you a lot of that. In Self-Driving Car, you're expected to know all of that, and we don't talk about what the definitions of those. We throw the notation in front of you, expect you to understand it. So Intro is really going to be a tool that you can use to prepare for that.
Yeah.
So I think that's where I like to draw the line, is to the math and the programming skills that you need to know to be ready for one program or the other.
And it's like a hard thing to learn how to problem solve, so a lot of what we do in this intro program is really focus on practice as much or as little as you need, and that's really how you get good at something.
Yeah. Here's an interesting question. How can this course help me apply what I learned in drones? Right, I guess just in what they've learned in drones and what they've used in drones, how can this course help them apply that? I guess it's almost one step back. With robotic, this is kind of an introduction to all the concepts that are needed in autonomy in autonomous systems. So drones, if you're talking about a remote control drone, really the concepts aren't really similar or, anything. I mean, you might have a flight controller that's keeping the drone stabilized and level. That, the ideas that go into that will be talked about here, and controls and everything. But it's really, there's no autonomy stack on a normal drone. Now, if it is an autonomous drone, this course kind of prepares you for that. So if you have the skills of that autonomy stack, I would say you're going to be maybe ready for this, or you're probably maybe, or you may not get a whole lot out of it if you already are great with the autonomy side of things. If you're not, then, and you are more familiar with the mechanical side of drones, or the, just flying them around personally, then you can actually take that to the next level. And if you really like the flying stuff, well, we have flying cars. So.
Yeah, I'd be interested to see if the student takes this program and can get something from it for their drones. I think some obvious tie-ins, if you want to sort of soup it up or something, would be something like a camera where you sort of analyze what the drone is seeing, maybe do some object recognition or some path planning and have it go around a loop or something like that. That would be something that you would learn the theory at least behind in this course.
Yep. I guess we never talked about this. This is a really, really good question. What is a self-driving car? And what does it mean to self-drive?
I guess legally there's these different levels, like level 1 to level 4 or something. But I guess when I think of it, I think of you sit in a car, you tell it where to go, and it will just take off on a city road driving by itself in a really safe way and get you to your destination.
Yeah, I think at the highest level you think
of... No driver, right?
Yeah.
That's it, yeah.
You think of everything you do in a car today, where you're, pedals, brake, gas, brake, steering, looking all the different directions, changing lanes. Everything that you do to just get from point A to point B, you don't do anymore. You get a text, you get to do email, you get to spend time with your family, you get to you get to spend quality time versus paying attention to the road.
Yeah,
and
which
so
people this would be
don't text and
safer.
Drive.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
So it's it's really allowing the car for you to be hands off of all the controls, and the car to operate safely and in an effective way. And like Cezanne said, there are different levels. The SAE sets that define the levels of autonomy and how autonomous a system is. But at the end of the day, a fully autonomous system should be able to drive on any road, any weather conditions, without any human interaction.
Yeah, I think the ones that are on the road right now in California, they do require a trained driver that will be able to avoid any potentially hairy situations with a brake.
Yep. There doesn't seem to be any work here in the industry, which means I need to relocate for work. Would it be possible, if I ace the course, to be recommended to your partners even though I'm not an American citizen? So, yes, absolutely. We have many people that are different foreign nationals on work visas. We just had a hiring event recently that we had tons of partners that were very interested in all of the students that showed up. I will say that getting through the visa process is not something I'm an expert on. That's something that kind of the government controls, and we don't have any say in that. But our, Silicon Valley is very diverse, and we are very, every company that I've seen out here is interested in hiring the smartest people regardless of where you come from in your background. They just want smart people solving, cool problems.
Yeah.
So definitely we set that up. Again, this program, the Intro to Self-Driving Cars program, is not a job-ready one, so we aren't putting you in front of our partners. But as you move on to self-driving cars, we do have people that have, before even finishing the program, because we're just about to have our first graduates, that have gained jobs out of that program, both with our partners and with people that aren't partners and just see the value in the Udacity education.
Yeah.
So, just in case you're tuning in, there's another question about scholarships. We are, Lyft, again, we're partnering with Lyft, and Lyft is offering our students scholarships for the Intro to Self-Driving Cars program, which is really exciting.
Yeah.
So if you're in financial need for that, definitely take advantage of it. But again, they're extremely competitive. I mean, we're talking thousands of applications to, a few hundred, recipients. So just be aware of that. And if you're really passionate about it, don't let that hold you back.
Yeah,
So.
and definitely, like, even though it's competitive, still worth trying.
Yeah.
It's just going to be, you know, some small amount of your time writing about why a scholarship would be worthwhile to you, and hopefully you would get it. That's all.
So it seems like there's a couple people asking about how they enroll in the course. It should be fairly straightforward, but I know that different countries have different portals. But if you go to the main webpage at udacity.com, there's, well, I think the biggest image right there right now is the Intro to Self-Driving Cars program. If you click on that, there should be a button for you to enroll in the course. Following enrollment, it'll prompt you for a payment. Once you get payment, you'll be dropped into the orientation classroom. And that's a fun little area that we're still adding to. It's not a completely finished product. We want to make it a little bit more, little bit more engaging as we go on. Because like everything at Udacity, it's a living and breathing product. But you'll be able to go in, you'll meet the team, you'll see, Cezanne and I and the rest of the team introducing ourselves. And you'll get to do a little bit of a comic. And we made the comic in a fun way so that if you're a little bit intimidated by the terms math and programming and all the stuff that goes along with that, it doesn't feel as intimidating right off the bat. So hopefully the programming and math exercises in there are just kind of fun, test your own knowledge. And then you'll have a good video to watch in some of your spare time, which is the DARPA Grand Challenge, which is where our founder, Sebastian Thrun, kind of, cut his teeth on self-driving cars. So.
Yeah, so the answer to that question is just sort of like, on our main page, you'll be able to find it. If you Google Intro to Self-Driving Cars program, you'll be able to find it. I would say just about the orientation, it is like mostly for fun, and our actual program is going to be much more rigorous than the questions you'll see in the comic. Yeah.
So somebody's currently in Germany, and they're wondering if this degree is something they can use in every country, and the degree is sent via email. So the term that we have is called, we have nanodegree programs, and so you'll earn a nanodegree credential going through our program. And what that is it's not like a normal bachelor's degree or a master's degree or anything. It's something that the industry values so we approach partners like Google, IBM, NVIDIA, Mercedes, BMW, and we work with these partners to make sure that what we're teaching in the classroom is what they actually want their employees to know. So it's not like a normal college accreditation where the piece of paper is very important that you have this piece of paper. We're a project-based program, so you're actually going to gain real-world skills and apply them in a project that, it's great that you have the nanodegree certification, but what really you come out of this program being able to do is talk about the skills you've learned and how you've applied them and the challenges you've been able to solve using those skills. Colleges, you can do that a little bit, but from my experience, doing projects and being able to talk about those projects and the struggles and the accomplishments is much more valuable than just being able to have that piece of paper.
Yeah, so sort of building up a portfolio of these professional projects that you've worked on is going to get you respect worldwide, I would imagine. Udacity maybe isn't as well known in Germany. I would say that's true, as like compared to San Francisco or something like that. But still, like, definitely worthwhile to showcase your talents and mention like this big program that you went through.
Yeah. Deep learning concepts, we're going to be covering some deep learning, some machine learning concepts in the course. Are they needed, or is deep learning needed to build a self-driving car?
I mean, yes. So I think, like,
it's a trick question.
Yeah, there's a number of aspects of deep learning that are used in self-driving cars. One that, like, I'm very interested in personally is just sort of vision. So it's looking through cameras and it's recognizing, hey, here's a human, hey, here's a bicycle, hey, here's another car, or something I don't know. And that's actually very critical to making decisions on the road. It actually translates very well to sort of how humans do it. You look at your surroundings and then you make a decision that's hopefully very safe. So, and to learn to recognize different objects and scenarios, that's handled by a lot of different deep learning algorithms. There's also mimicking sort of good drivers. A car can learn from good, like, behavioral driving. Yeah. And that's a little trickier, but it's also a very big part of self-driving car navigation.
Yeah, and we do offer courses. I mean, if you're really interested in the machine learning, reinforcement learning, deep learning, yeah, we offer separate courses that dive into more of those topics because you can use them on everything from self-driving cars to, like, natural language processing. So your Alexa, Siri, Google Home apps and everything. Yeah. That's kind of things that they do on the back end. Even Google Translate's using deep learning now. But that's kind of that's a deeper dive if you want to go into that specific area. Definitely do it if you're interested in it. It's a great skill set to have. The industry for self-driving cars is very interested in learning about some of that. They're applying at some of those skills. So, which gets on to another question. What kind of job opportunities are there in self-driving cars? I mean, everybody talks about, you hear this like self-driving car engineer, but what is that? What kind of skills? I mean, obviously you can look at our self-driving car program, you can see the skills that maybe companies want you to have, which is like localization, computer vision, deep learning, sensor fusion techniques, path planning. All of those are super important, but are you expected to be an expert in all of those areas?
Yeah, so I think usually there's a kind of still a small team of people who are experts in one of those, or maybe more. But sort of the common theme that all of those specializations have is that you are working with a data set, whether it's images or examples of driving, and you are using that to control some specific part of the car.
Yeah, and I mean, computer vision perception, which is Cezanne's background, is a very, very hot topic in self-driving vehicles and just in general in technology. Path planning is another. We had a Bosch challenge recently, and during the Bosch challenge, that was one of the things that Bosch wanted to hire for and wanted to see was the path planner. So they put out a path planning challenge. So kind of what we're hoping to do with this intro program too is teach you about the different areas that are out there and the different types of jobs that you could get. And then as you move on to self-driving car, you'll start working in these different kind of projects, doing things, kind of figuring out what do you really like doing. Did you really like doing a deep learning application? Did you really like doing path planning? And hopefully that helps steer you towards the type of job that you want to apply for.
And I think we're talking a lot about like if you become an expert in this one field, but we also teach pretty broadly, and there's a really big benefit to that, which is that if you know something about neural networks, if you know something about locating a car, if you know something about object recognition, just a little bit, you'll be able to understand how like a whole self-driving car works, and having that bigger picture is really key to any sort of specific job that you pursue within that path.
When is the next intro class going to be offered? So currently right now, since we're just about to open the first cohort, the next one, and we're early October just in case somebody's watching this a little later. The next one I think is going to be at the end of October is we're going to open the next one. So enrollment for that period will start after enrollment closes for the first cohort. So about every 3 weeks is a cadence. It may go to monthly, bi-monthly. It kind of just depends on how we want to do it. We try to avoid holidays because nobody really wants to start something during the holiday breaks. But yeah, so if you're unable to join now or you're kind of still pondering it, if you don't get in it this time, definitely join the next one. What is the total cost and time to complete this program? And Intro to Self-Driving Cars and completing the 3-part engineering program. So the Intro to Self-Driving Cars program is $800, and it takes about 4 months to complete. It's probably going to be about that 4 months doing this first one as we finish developing content and everything. After the content is fully released, advanced students may be able to go through it faster by dedicating more than the 10 to 15 recommended hours. But we like to put 4 months there as a good baseline. Conversely, the self-driving car program is 3 terms at $800 a pop or a term, and so that's going to be total of $2,400, and it takes about 9 months. Again, because of content development schedule, as the first groups were going through it, I would say it took about a year because we're just having our first graduates now. So you're looking at somewhere around about a year's worth of work and about $3,200. Which
for the whole.
For the entire self-driving car program. And that kind of works with robotics too. Robotics is around $2,400, but it's separated into 2 terms. And flying car is yet unannounced for pricing and length. I think it's going to be a 6-month program for length, but the pricing has not been announced.
Okay, yeah. So about 4 months for this intro program. And I would also say that once you're in the classroom, you can sort of see your progress, and even down to the level of how many minutes do I have left in this particular section to learn some skill. So you can get pretty granular once you're in there. I don't have those numbers off the top of my head, but.
Sure. I'm looking at somebody making some comments that they've seen some errors in one of our free Python courses, and they've sent some stuff on the, posted some things on the forums. We do have a support channel. I will admit, and as they point out in the question here, probably the free programs that are a bit older don't get as much love as we'd like to give them. But we do try to address the issues, and if there are errors that we can go back and fix, we do that. With the Intro to Self-Driving Cars program, we definitely do that now. We have some issues that have popped up early on in the orientation, which we always really appreciate you pointing out. So our waffle board and our Slack channel, our team does actively pay attention to. I personally responded to a few questions that I've seen pop up in Slack. So please, if you see anything that's off, if you're even if you're questioning whether it's off or not, please email us about it. We try to have a very high quality program, and we want to make sure that your experience is great and we're not giving you misinformation.
Yeah, we'll definitely keep our eye on issues as they arise. Hopefully there won't be many of them. And just a note specifically on the Intro to Python, I actually know that content is being worked on, being updated by a really smart group of content developers here. So hopefully that'll be fixed soon.
See, we're working on it.
Yeah, we are always working on it.
This is a great question. I don't know if everybody knows what an IDE is. It's an integrated development environment. It's commonly used for programming. So they're asking kind of which IDE is going to be used for Python and C++, and is it going to be on Linux or Windows, or what do I use on Mac? What are we doing for students in that aspect?
So in the Intro to Self-Driving Cars program, we're actually using an in-classroom environment. So you'll be able to, it's easiest to see in an example that I wish I had right now, but you'll be able to dynamically program in Python in our classroom. You won't have to download any IDE. We'll have one that does sort of like syntax highlighting that compiles and runs your code for you, and that's the same for C++. Later on, we might have some recommendations for IDEs to use, but there will be actually no requirements for you to download that.
You can go crazy like me sometimes and use VI, which is completely a text editor and gives you no tools, or Visual Studio Code, which is something new that I've started playing around with that seems to be really nice and gives you some of those features that an IDE should have and troubleshooting ability. I'm a mechanical engineer working in automotive design field. What are the prerequisites for software and mechanical skills? And are they important for learning the self-driving car course? So I think we talked about that with our two personas. So it sounds like you definitely have probably the math skills if you're a mechanical engineer, and maybe you're a little light on the software skills. At least the friends that I knew going through a mechanical engineering program, you used languages like MATLAB or Mathematica and different analytical languages. But you're still programming. You have an understanding of the concepts. And I would say, you'll probably breeze through some, or it'll feel like probably a good refresher to go through the statistics pieces and the calculus and the matrices refreshers. Or it'll feel like a refresher for you. And then the coding part, you may have to do a little bit more on if you don't have as much of that coding. But Python is a super accessible language, and it's very, very easy to read. So yeah. I don't think you should be too worried about your readiness to take the Intro to Self-Driving Cars.
So prerequisites for anybody are just sort of basic algebra and have had a little bit of programming experience. And if you're a mechanical engineer, it sounds like you're probably very well equipped to be in this program.
This is another perfect question. This course teaches Python and C. I find that this course teaches Python and C++. How is this different from any other online self-learning course that teaches Python and C++? So we're not really teaching you Python or C++. We kind of expect that you come in knowing Python or C++ or a programming language. A program and we have some free courses here as well that will teach you Python and the syntax and C++ and the syntax. Our goal is to teach you how you use those languages as a tool to enable self-driving cars. So we're not specifically going to teach you Python. Here's some syntax, here's some hints, here's some pointers, but you're expected to kind of know at least programming languages and pick up on the syntax. C++, we're going to teach you, we're using C++ because the automotive industry does see it as very important. So if you want a job in self-driving cars, know now that you probably want to learn C++ and get really good at C++. But we're teaching you even, I think, a better skill, which is translating from one programming language to another. a lot of times, especially even early CS students, computer science students, only see one programming language. And when you put something else in front of them, it's different, and they're not exactly sure why it's different or how to do what they could normally do in this language all the time. How do they now do it in this other language? So that's, I would say we're not teaching Python and C++, but we're using them, and so we're going to be teaching them a little bit as a tool to enable self-driving cars and start your education in self-driving cars.
Yeah, so I mean, you definitely will learn some Python and C++, a little more focus on the advanced, like object-oriented programming concepts as opposed to really basic syntax and expressions. But like Anthony said, the difference is that these programming skills will focus on self-driving car applications, the math that runs them, and the decisions that they make.
How do vacations affect the training schedule?
If I take a vacation.
Yeah. When you try to go to Live Help and we're all on vacation, sorry. No? We do try to work around that sometimes. I don't have a good solid answer for you, but we do understand that life is happening. And so we do try to accommodate, at least like wide. Biggest one is like around Christmas time, or I guess around the end of December. Yeah. There's many different holidays that we try to accommodate. And if there's a struggle that you're running into because of something, definitely let our students support team know, and we will try to do what we can to accommodate you.
Exactly. So our student support team handles any extensions from something really short to something like a week long, depending on the circumstance.
Which Linux distribution can I use for self-driving cars, for the Self-Driving Car Nanodegree? So if we're talking about Intro to Self-Driving Car, you don't have to use Linux if you don't want to. For the Advanced Self-Driving Car program, there is, I use Ubuntu mainly because Ubuntu is free. It works well with there's just a lot of support there. Mm-hmm. And the biggest reason I would probably, if you want to get into Linux, and this is another thing that if you're serious about becoming a self-driving car engineer that I would do, is learn Linux, learn the command line, learn just how a Linux system works. Ubuntu is great because if you're not familiar with ROS is a tool that currently only works on Ubuntu-based systems. And ROS is the robot operating system. A lot of vehicle companies and a lot of self-driving car companies are starting to use ROS in their vehicles as a framework to enable self-driving cars. So,
but that's not in this program.
That's not in this program. That's kind of some of the stuff that, again, I talked about. The content we teach here is great, and it's definitely going to teach you the skills you need for a job going forward. But part of it's on you to go above and beyond and do things that set you apart from other people. Learning Linux, being really great at C++, is definitely something that will help set you apart. And I think Linux is just a great skill in general. Learning a different operating system, learning the command line tools, learning how the file system works is just, if you want to do anything with autonomous systems, robotics, flying cars, self-driving cars, embedded systems, Linux, I think, is a key enabler to all of that. So, very big Linux fan.
Yeah.
Looks like we've got a few minutes left, so we're going to try to answer as many more as we can. So we've answered a lot of questions about, people who feel like they may be rusty in C++ or rusty in math, and if they're ready for the program. One of the things that, and I would say it's a myth, that I want to kind of dispel is that you should come into this program knowing everything about what we're going to teach. A lot of people seem like, when we talk about the concepts that we're going to talk about, calculus, matrices, C++, they feel kind of intimidated by the program because they don't know that, or they learned it, but it was years ago, and they haven't done anything with it. We're not here to, expect you to, day one, be a self-driving car engineer. I mean, what would be the point of taking the program if you had that?
Yeah.
We're here to teach you. We're here to make it a fun journey through learning, and really, get your skill set up to the point that you feel comfortable with those kind of things.
Mm-hmm. And I'd actually say that this intro program is actually for people who are feeling a little antsy, maybe not super confident in programming or math skills. We're going to try to get you there. Absolutely.
So I'm going to switch over to YouTube real quick to see if there's any. I saw this question earlier, and I don't know if we had a good answer for it. What version of C++ will we be working with?
So the latest one is it's 11 or something like that, a recent big update. I think we are perhaps one version behind that.
Well, I think I know there's a 98 and there's an 11. They're asking about 11, 14, 17. I think between 98 and 11, there was some big differences. I would imagine we're on the newer, at least 11 side of the.
So yeah, since you'll be running code in our classroom, we work with engineers to make that up to date. I will say that some of the most recent updates are for things like fairly complex like pointers or lambda functions that we won't actually use. So in some ways, it doesn't matter too much, but I think we will be pretty up to date. I can't give the exact version right now, though.
Yeah. As far as Python, we're using Python 3. I know that.
That's true.
There's a big diversion in Python about Python 2.x and 3.x, and even I started at 2 for a while. I wanted to stay with 2, and now I need to use the features in 3, and so now I'm on 3. But I don't think we're on like C++ 98. One last question before we go is we have a high schooler asking about enrolling in the Nanodegree program and if we accept high schoolers.
Oh, cool.
So absolutely. So the Intro to Self-Driving Cars program has no barrier to entry. If whatever level of skill you're at, we try to communicate as well as we can to like what we expect you to know. But it's up to you to make that final call, and we welcome everybody of every skill. Wherever you are in life, if you have the skills and you think you're capable of it, absolutely join us.
Yeah, if you're looking to learn some programming fundamentals, math fundamentals, join Intro to Self-Driving Cars Nanodegree program.
Yeah. Well, it's time for us to wrap up. Thank you for joining us for our first Intro to Self-Driving Cars Ask Me Anything. You may see more of these in the future, and look for us on Slack, and we look forward to seeing you in the classroom.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
Talking to you.